EX Isle of Dreams is the showpiece for stage hazard combos. While there are instances of the concept during the last section of the EX sewers, this stage is where players are tasked with leveraging stage hazards to a significant degree. For the uninitiated, enemies that die to any stage hazard while they're actively being damaged, be it by tag damage or by flash field contact, still count toward Gunvolt's combos. This esoteric mechanic is central to the level structure, with certain enemy groups being either impossible or prohibitively difficult to optimize without weaponizing the innumerable rolling spikes scattered about. It's an incisive bit of game design to be sure. What makes this stage especially intriguing is that if you so desire, you can go well beyond what the designers ostensibly intended by sprinkling some airstrikes and skill finishes into the already intricate combos. Sometimes, the best route forward involves racking your brain until a solution that doesn't utilize hazards is revealed. This adds immense depth to the routing process, forcing players to carefully weigh their options. If the existence of stage hazard combos wasn't enough of a knowledge check, take a gander at this ridiculous sequence. A bonus of 333 secret kudos can be yours so long as you correctly manipulate this cavalcade of Eden soldiers strewn across the conveyor platforms. With diligent movement, it's possible to exploit their behavior and set up a 7 strike, which is the condition for the kudos to be granted. The dearth of enemies leads to a low-scoring stage overall, so optimization involves a multitude of high-risk maneuvers, even more so than usual. This jump between a sentry unit and flying drone is a premier example. It'd be infinitely safer to take the 2-2 split, but the 4 strike is both rewarding and a wonderfully florid bit of movement. This next one is far more forgiving but no less satisfying. It's preferable to intercept the rightmost soldier with Dragon Sphere and let the conveyor keep him pinned rather than letting him fall into the spike bed. Compared to a stage like EX Battle, I'd argue that the average combo here takes more skill to pull off. However, despite Viper lurking at the end, EX Isle of Dreams is too short to claim the difficulty crown, and it's consistent enough to be manageable without demanding weeks of investment to optimize. Even so, the number of failures I incurred during this last segment and against Viper were numerous, so this isn't a stage to trifle with. Every single thing you saw me try in this run cost me at least one attempt, and usually several more. A strict, yet well-balanced challenge. To my knowledge, the incendiary grenade addict is unchanged for Gunvolt, so let's summarize what makes him tick. Phase 1. Jump over Viper when he closes the distance with a slide. There's no danger of getting walloped by a jump kick, so don't let go of the flash field. You should only need to recharge once. Phase 2. Always jump to the side of the arena with more space. Doing so automatically dodges Viper's jump kicks by having him sail over Gunvolt's head. If Viper is closer to the middle of the arena, preemptively jump over him before he selects his next move. This ensures evasion regardless of whether he slides or jumps. Make sure to recharge after blocking any of Viper's bombs. Try to trigger Sunshine Nova while Gunvolt is to the left of Viper. It's much easier to land 3 tags and get in position to dodge the deluge of fiery bullets from the left. I start with Gunvolt's front foot slightly offset from the line in the floor. After escaping the bullet hell, jump up and tag Viper once before the concentrated streams of flame arrive. Which skill you decide to use as the finisher is at your discretion. Crash Bolt is faster, while Dragon Sphere is safer and a bit more amusing. Not a huge difference. Starting things off, pay close attention to the way I fire shots at the first puppet sentry. Slowing down and methodically timing your fire while using Stellar Spark against enemies who aren't resistant to it is one way of subtly increasing your score. You need decent timing to avoid defeating the target too early or too late. Using this trick can interrupt the flow of Copen's movement, but here, the extra time spent is a boon in disguise. The falling scrap in the opening sector would intercept Copen if I sped past the first sentry. The gimmick of this stage centers around conveyors pushing your foes to their doom before you have a chance to use them as fodder for score. From a real-world perspective, these enemies lead a purposeless existence, but in the world of Gunvolt and its scoring rules, this sinister array of conveyors feeding enemies to spikes is the last thing you want to see. Rather than relinquishing points by settling for unlocked kills before the enemies meet the Reaper, I endured the process of pouring inordinate amounts of research into developing an itinerary that would allow me to tag each poor robot individually, bringing greater meaning to their seemingly pointless lives. Of the EX stages, this one is the shortest by a wide margin. Copen's time limit is 3 minutes and 10 seconds, so the expectation is that you optimize for speed. This is further evidenced by the complete absence of GCEXs, which are time-consuming to varying degrees. The secret kudos for Copen's excursion are decidedly less obscure than Gunvolt's. Simply destroy 3 of the junk piles at any point during the stage. The vital thing to know about these piles is that they don't fall on a global cycle. Rather, they begin spawning after the player crosses a certain invisible threshold, so it's possible to plan a consistent route. Copen's battle against Viper is quite dynamic. The first noteworthy aspect is that when dodging Viper's bomb shots from the ground, it's beneficial to have Copen's shield disabled so the explosions from the bombs don't serve as a barricade that protects Viper. Copen's reliance on contacting enemies to tag them means letting the bombs sail off into the fire pillars is the ideal play. Phase 2 is where Copen encounters difficulties. Unlike his ground assault, Viper's aerial bombardment isn't something that you want to play around with. Switching between having Copen's shield active or idle depending on the scenario is the ideal approach. Copen trades a perilous Phase 2 for a smooth approach while handling Sunshine Nova. Simply take to the skies and continuously tag Viper, watching him shoot his nigh-endless stream of bullets in vain. I prefer to constantly roll off Viper rather than recoiling backward. Doing so negates the need to manage which direction Copen is facing while shooting. 2 points that merit consideration are tracking Viper's HP and to avoid careening into a fire pillar when Viper begins moving. Ensure that you have an EX weapon active if you ended Phase 2 unarmed. Shredstorm can't be used without a weapon equipped. What would happen if you took the sheer scope of EX Babel and combined it with the technical complexity found within EX Isle of Dreams? Well, you'd get something that looks like this. EX Prism Highway is the highest scoring, and consequently, the most strenuous stage in the game. Every single second of your journey through this ravaged, lambent purple road demands excellence. For example, this optimal force strike calls for highly strict Dragon Sphere placement and quick fingers to rapid fire and recover before Gunvolt is dragged into the great unknown. The issue is that this stage is absolutely brimming with these types of combos. Nothing here can be taken for granted. Any lapse in focus assures failure. 2 combos reign supreme in the absurdity department. The first is a force strike featuring 2 fire golems and 2 roll cannons. The cannons are spaced so far apart that, at first glance, just getting a force strike seems implausible, while stacking 120 more kudos on top should be firmly within impossible territory. Of course, nothing's impossible if you're dumb enough to keep bashing your head into a wall, which is exactly what I did for uncountable hours while developing and practicing that disturbingly detailed routine. The saddest part is that I lost many attempts to the combos directly following. They're objectively less frightening, but still involve skill jumps and more pin the Dragon Sphere on the sprinkler festivities. Even the Siren segment is complex enough to keep you on your toes. As I demonstrate, it's possible to get airstrikes on pairs of soldiers provided that they're sufficiently far apart from each other. While it's not terribly finicky, I did lose more than one attempt by shooting only 2 shots at the second soldier, so quick mashing is required. Clustering the last batch of foes together by shocking the first pair 3 times leads to big crash bolt gains. The second of the dread-inducing combos is a 5-strike that entails zapping 2 roll cannons and a brush saw below Gunvolt while he's flanked by a shutter and a missile launcher. With exceptional timing, it's feasible to have a brush saw hit the tail end of the crash bolt animation, resetting the combo timer and allowing flash field kills to chain without issue. This is an exception to the principle that a dart kill is required to chain with crash bolt. Any enemies that move into it during the animation will suffice. There's some freedom in how you choose to tackle the rest of the awkwardly placed enemies in this circular sector. I chose a counterclockwise path as it seemed to be the most efficient. Ensure that you don't ignore the brush saw protected by a series of crates, otherwise you'll leave many points on the table. The positioning for Crash Bolt to hit all 3 targets is moderately harsh. I'd advise practice to avoid any heart-wrenching errors. My award for favorite puzzle in this stage goes to this imprisoned roll cannon. There are a few ways to go about getting a triple. Initially, I engaged in the tedium of pushing the grenade launcher all the way down, but that got scrapped when I clocked that I could force the missile machine to switch directions by moving far away from it and returning. Following a second instance of the brush saw and crash bolt timing trick, let's talk about another addition to Inti Create's burgeoning list of crimes against humanity. Why in the hell are some of these sprinklers' health bars hidden? The majority of sprinklers littered about show their HP, so I find it dubious that 2 crucial sprinklers missing theirs is a mere oversight. I understand that the health bars are technically off-screen, but the decision to keep them occluded instead of placing them above those specific sprinklers is heinous. This entire game, especially Score Attack, centers around heatful HP management. Without a bar to relay this information, the kudos counter is the only resource available, which while helpful, is imprecise. Losing a run by killing a sprinkler too early, which did happen once, isn't a productive experience, it just instills a deep sense of indignation. Thankfully, those wonderful 8 strikes before the hexapile are consistent. For the array of 8 floaters, time your shots so that each is tagged only once. They'll be destroyed right before leaving the camera's view, and the combo timer's lenience means that you'll be awarded 900 kudos after the last one bites the dust. For the column of 8 orbs, stand between the first 2 burning cars in the pit and dash jump forward while holding the flash field. Gunvolt will find himself placed neatly between the orbs as they congregate around him, placing them in a prime position to fall to Crash Bolt. Well, that whole sermon leapt right past the Stratos fight. This would be a problem, but the one slightly meaningful change to his moveset isn't shown during this particular confrontation. Although EX Prism Highway wasn't the stage that I spent the most time on, I still put forth that it is one of GV2's toughest challenges. I believe the only reason for the relatively quote-unquote quick turnaround time of slightly over 2 weeks is that I was able to draw upon the experience I gained from previous endeavors. This stage serves as an excellent barometer to assess the severity of any masochistic tendencies you may possess. On the surface, Copen's journey is straightforward, especially compared to GV's hellish tribulations, but you're given ample opportunity to cause yourself some enormous complications, the first of which is eliminating that wannabe ninja without using Vantage Raid. Diminishing returns is a concept you'll become intimately familiar with as you research the intricacies of the Sundered Highway. This first GCEX is a non-issue under normal circumstances, but it becomes an inconsistent affair if you obsess over maximizing the number of aerial EX bonuses you're awarded. It's all too common to find yourself darting into incoming shots or accidentally striking both floaters simultaneously. Calling the maneuver tricky undersells it. Thankfully, the second GCEX is reliable. Push the floater until it's adjacent to the sprinkler, then hover briefly behind the sonic shooter to reset its pattern. The time invested here is well worth the massive increase in repeatability. The enemy ambush is Stellar Spark's domain until the last 4 soldiers drop, at which point Hailstorm Blade's speed assists in avoiding any unwanted jumping from the blue menaces. Take note of the careful shooting while engaging the fire golems. Defeating them just as Spark's satellite makes contact preserves energy. Repeatedly rebounding off the floor can be used as a metronome of sorts, providing insight into when exactly the next array of foes will arrive. It's a bit sluggish, but there's enough time on the clock to stop and farm kudos off the enemies en route to the Prism Highway bowling alley. So long as you begin charging Prism Break ASAP, you're free to indulge in as much or as little stat padding as you please. The long haul of floaters lurking behind the prism blocks is most certainly contrived, but nailing the timing for tagging all the floaters and getting 3 shots in before the comically large crystal decimates them is undoubtedly satisfying. I highly recommend thoroughly planning your movements to escape the alley. Winging it only invites disappointment. By now I'm sure you've noticed that one of Copen's duties here is to combine the vocations of firefighter and sniper, using Hydro Zapper to quench the thirst of the many scattered cars set ablaze. Making good time absolutely mandates that you become a crackshot, learning how to adequately manipulate the water's direction to douse any vehicles set behind walls. Keeping Hydro Zapper's phenomenal range in mind is essential when planning your shots. Fires can and will be dispersed irrespective of the cars sitting well beyond the camera's view. The last GCEX epitomizes the notion of self-inflicted pain that I put forth at the start. It's blatantly obvious that the intended solution is to use unlocked Broad Circuit's absurd coverage to ice the sprinkler and the 6 orbs to its left. To do otherwise is beyond foolish, as you introduce undue uncertainty to the combo for minuscule gains. Of course, my intractable nature inevitably led me to break conventions, so cancelling Hailstorm Blade into unlocked Stellar Spark was the solution I arrived at. Unsurprisingly, my hubris was punished accordingly, as I lost 4 runs butchering the GCEX. The sheer variety present in EX Prism Highway makes it highly memorable. It's got the type of eclectic yet coherent level design that feels like it was lifted right out of Mega Man Zero 2. The only downside to such a buffet of concepts is that you'll inevitably find increasingly idiotic ways to fail. I'm not talking about the kind of funny stuff that's suitable for a blooper reel. I mean the kind of blunders that'll make you question the meaning of life. Case in point, I actually managed to flub one attempt against Stratos by misguiding one of his projectiles during Destiny Fang. The sting from that mistake was tough to shake off. Stratos' pattern during Phase 2 was horrendous. In the moment, I was tense enough that I completely forgot how the projectiles from his split ball attack react during a phase transition. For that reason, I lose a few seconds by playing things safe. I'll pin the blame for that on getting picked off by Rapunzel's hair drills one too many times during the boss rush. If you fight through Destiny Fang instead of cutting it short, your foremost concern is properly luring the projectiles to allow for continuous tagging. It's critical that you stand directly underneath Stratos and move only after a shot is fired. Then, it's of equal importance that you turn to face him on the ground before you jump up. Otherwise, you risk tagging the bug-spewing apparatuses instead. Whether Destiny Fang is worth interrupting or not is something I didn't research, because my goal was to show how to confront it. Had I known 2.3 million was a hair's width away, I would have farmed more. Maybe someday I'll cover the trilogy version and go for it there.